Live broadcast 10 a.m. to 12 noon on June 28th in Rochester.
Safe, no fuss, leave the driving to us. Adventure's just a right away. Beaver County Transit Authority, BCTA. Ride the bus.
You're listening to 99.3 FM, presented by St. Barnabas, in addition to 1230 WBVP Beaver Falls. Welcome to the Best of Beaver County, presented by St. Barnabas, a weekly segment dedicated to putting the focus on the amazing things and the amazing people behind them in Beaver County. The Best of Beaver County is sponsored by and content is provided by St. Barnabas. The show airs every Thursday from 11 to 11:30 on WBVP, WMBA, 99.3 FM, and Facebook Live. Now, with no further ado, let's welcome host Mike Romai to introduce today's program.
Thunder Pig. Thunder Pig. You heard me right. It's the Best of Beaver County on the St. Barnabas Radio Network. I'm Mike Romai, and joining us from the Beaver County Air Heritage Museum is Tom Gargaro. And maybe nobody else in the audience recognizes Thunder Pig, but I'm sure that Tom does. Good morning, Tom, and welcome.
Good morning, Mike. Welcome. It's nice to be here. Thank you for having me on the Best of Beaver County.
Oh, it's a pleasure to have you here. You do so much in Beaver County and have for so many years under the guidance of Judith, but you know.
Yeah. How true. How true.
But no, tell us a little bit about yourself. We'll get into Air Heritage and all the things you're doing and the flyover at the Boom this weekend. But who is Tom Gargaro?
Well, you know, I'm married to my beautiful wife, Judith. We've been together for almost 25 years. I worked at Duquesne Light for 30 years and then moved to First Energy, retired in 2015. And Judith immediately said, you got to find something else to do. I got involved heavily with the Beaver Falls car cruise for a lot of years, and then just recently, 3 or 4 years ago, got asked to become active over at Air Heritage Aviation Museum, and we like doing volunteer work. We helped work the Maple Syrup Festival and stuff, so we get a lot of pleasure out of doing volunteer work.
Yeah, you're that guy. You're that couple, because there are not a lot of people who get a lot of satisfaction out of volunteer work. They want to be paid for it.
Right.
But there's so many. Are you from Beaver County originally?
I have never lived in Beaver County, believe it or not. I grew up in Kennedy Township. Judith and I lived on the south side slopes for a while in Brighton Heights.
What was that like?
What?
South side slopes. Many of us only see it from a distance.
Yeah, that was nice. I mean, it was nice that we could just walk down half a mile or so and go to a restaurant or a bar or something like that. That was very interesting over there. And then we bought a house, a big old house in Brighton Heights, lived there for a while. And then when I took a job with First Energy, we moved over to New Waterford, Ohio.
Okay. They have is there a facility over there that have a nice water fountain, spews up on a lake? Everybody has a lake over there in their own backyard, right?
Yeah, when we first started looking around in Ohio, we thought, oh, this one has a pond or a lake. And because it's so flat, there's so much water over there that everybody has a pond or a lake. Okay. You know, in front of their house or behind it.
Sure, so flat,
yeah,
right?
It is.
And then was it through First Energy and Duquesne Light that you got attached to Beaver County in one way or another?
Yeah, well, the first half of my career at Duquesne Light, I worked in the field. I was a high voltage switchman, and I worked Beaver County was my area to work. So I became really familiar with a lot of the towns around Beaver County. I went to every town, every neighborhood, pretty much almost every street in Beaver County over 17 years. And I just like the vibe that Beaver County has. You know, it's an older county with a lot of mills that shut down and have many of the towns, most of them have revitalized themselves. And I had relatives that lived in West Aliquippa down at when the mill was going down there. So, and then the cruise really got Judith and I really deeply involved in Beaver County.
Wow, it's amazing. My grandparents on my mother's side my grandfather came from West Aliquippa.
Really?
Back in the early days of J&L and all that kind of stuff over there. But yeah, it's great that you found a home here. And so should I spell your name for people who, when their power goes off in the next storm, they call you? They can call Tom Gargaro.
I used to get a lot of those, but now that I'm retired, not so much.
Yeah. Well, obviously there's still issues with that, but there's a lot of service. But we're not here to talk about that. We'll talk about the Air Heritage Museum. I see you have a shirt on that says "Home of the Luck of the Irish" and Thunder Pig.
Correct.
All right. Air Heritage has been here since Dan Donatello's days.
Absolutely. Air Heritage actually started officially in 1983. It was incorporated as a 501c3 in 1986. At that time, there wasn't even a hangar. They just had a little piece of the tarmac out there at Beaver County Airport. The wonderful volunteers over the years that built and sustained this place, for anybody who's ever been out there, it's a phenomenal museum. It's our understanding that we're the most visited museum in Beaver County. As an example, over the last 3 months, we had visitors from 31 states and 7 countries. So we really draw in a lot of folks. We are a completely volunteer operation. We're always looking for new members. You know, the membership is what really sustains us and allows us to keep both of these planes still flying. The Luck of the Irish is a C-47, World War II vintage. Actually made 2 drops at the Battle of the Bulge, took ground fire. And we have a lot of history in the car world. We call it provenance. We have every flight it made every day. Finally, when they were done with the C-47, they gave it to the state of Florida for spraying mosquitoes, believe it or not. So when we got it in 2013, our volunteers took 7 years because it was painted different. They tore out the insides to restore it to its original. And I think it was 1994 when we got the C-123. Both of these, C means a cargo plane. So the C-123 was a big player in Vietnam era. I think there were around 300 of them made. They were made by the Fairchild Corporation. And about a third of the C-123s in Vietnam were used for spraying Agent Orange. So those ones, most of the C-123s, when they came back, were given to the reserves. And there was a bunch of them out at the 9/11th out at Greater Pittsburgh Airport. So a lot of the guys out there had experience working on the C-123s. The government, after a while, by the late 70s, started saying, look, these ones that are contaminated,
I was going to say,
they're probably staying contaminated.
Yeah.
So they actually scrapped a lot of those. Ours was never contaminated. It never left the United States. It was used as a training plane in the United States, so we assure people that it's very, very clean. And, you know, it was a very, very important plane and until it was replaced, I think, in the 80s by the C-130s. They're called a Hercules. They're much bigger. They have the same ramp on the back. And a lot of people ask, like, about this name, Thunder Pig. I like the way you started, Thunder Pig. So the guys over at the 9/11th who worked on these, who became a lot of our volunteers in the early days, they had other planes in the reserve called like the Thunderbolt, made by Fairchild and stuff like that. So, and the Thunderbolt was actually called a hog. They called it the Thunder Hog. So when they started getting the 123s in, they called them pigs. And then when it came to Air Heritage, they said, we're going to call it the Thunder Pig, just like the Thunderbolts were called. So a lot of people don't understand where that name comes from, but we're very, very proud of the fact that, to our knowledge, our C-123 is the only one in the world flying. We have people on our Facebook page from 32 different countries, far Asia, South America, Alaska, and nobody else. These are all aviation enthusiasts. Nobody else really knows of another C-123 that flies. We're the only one. And that's why we get people from near and far coming to see the plane. Anytime the plane flies, we go to a lot of air shows every year. We're in great demand. It's been in several movies. It was in an X-Men movie. It was in a movie with Tom Cruise called American Made. Our C-123 is in great demand.
Yeah. Wow, that's incredible. Now, I don't know. Never in the military, never flew a plane. I flew in planes, but the only experience that I would have, some of those craft that came back from Vietnam, is famous for unloading whatever they had to unload in Vietnam and then flying back with opium and marijuana back. Anything like that go on with those planes?
Yeah, no, that was part of the role our plane played in this movie American Made with Tom Cruise.
Yeah.
They wanted it. We actually flew it to Georgia, and they simulated that it was in South America doing drug runs and stuff like that. But, you know, we get so much feedback from Vietnam veterans I know you know this, right? Over 52,000 Americans killed during the Vietnam War, over 3,100 from Pennsylvania. You know, Pennsylvania had the 4th highest fatalities in the Vietnam War from throughout all the United States. So the C-123 is our way of keeping the memory alive about, you know, the Vietnam veterans, and it's really a tribute to them. Everyone that comes says, oh, I flew on that plane. It was noisy, it was loud, but it got us there. And, you know, while a lot of the people that were in service, World War II, Korea, Vietnam, they loved to see the fighter planes. You know, they were very, very fast. But the cargo planes is what they waited for, because that's where they got all their medical supplies, their food, their ammunition. That's, you know, when they saw a cargo plane coming, they were relieved.
Yeah. Now, in terms of all that, when you know, the vets come to see it, or when you rent it out for movies, does that help Air Heritage Museum as far as donations are concerned? Do they pay you a certain amount? Do they pay the museum a certain amount to use the plane in the movie?
Yes, absolutely. So again, our whole organization stays alive from donations. It's the only source of income we have. So, for example, when we go to an air show, it costs for the Thunder Pig itself, costs around $1,400 or $1,500 an hour for the engines to run. Wow. You have to run the engines for 15 or 20 minutes on the ground. You run them all the way up and back down. You test everything before you're even going to take off. So typically we want, and plus we'll go through 3 or 4 gallons of oil. The people that, if you ever come out to the museum, you'll see that under the propellers of both of our warbirds, there's big silver pans to catch the oil droppings. And all the pilots will say, if I don't see oil, I'm not flying it, because they're made to, you know, if it's not dripping oil, there's not enough oil in there. So, yeah, we go, if we go for a movie, a flyover, anything like that, we get reimbursed for our fuel, our oil, and then an appearance fee. And a lot of times if we go to air shows and we go there as a static display, we'll fly in the day before and we'll give tours of the plane and people give us donations. We also set up kind of a sales table with a lot of our merchandise and stuff like that.
You got it fixed this year just in time for the Beaver County boom?
Yeah, it was really close. We, over the winter, we had to, last fall, it blew an engine. So we have some friends in Hagerstown who have a museum who had an engine who were gracious enough to kind of do a swap with us. Our wonderful volunteers, and a lot of these guys are in their 70s and 80s. They spent the winter putting it back together. We developed the fuel leak just about 2 weeks ago. They worked all weekend long this past weekend and then did a test flight the other day to make sure it's okay. Very important for us to have it ready for Beaver County boom. These old airplanes, Mike, every time you fly them, something can go wrong. And we're very, very lucky and blessed that we have people there that know how to fix it and who are dedicated enough to say, we're going to get it ready. And everybody there knows how special it is that we've been invited for the 2nd year in a row to be a part of Beaver County Boom. And we're very, very thankful to Beaver County Boom and Mark and Nate Kopsack for including us. We're very proud of that.
Yeah, and you fly low for those flyovers, especially that one. And I think you guys came to the Pancake Syrup Festival, the Maple Syrup Festival.
Yes.
And I remember looking up, and it was just like right above our heads.
Yeah, and the last time that you had Cruising on the Ridge up here, our folks were going to be doing some what they call currency flights. Every pilot has to do 3 takeoffs and landings within the past 90 days in order to be able to carry passengers. The only people that can ride on our plane are members. You have to be a member. That's what our insurance dictates. But the last Cruising on the Ridge, I was over the hangar before I came over here, and they were getting ready to do their currency flights. And typically they fly from Beaver County up to Youngstown and back and do a couple landings. And I said, boy, if you could, you know, just kind of swing over the ridge here. And I pulled in, and it was like a couple minutes later it came over. So, yeah, to my knowledge, well, I know this for a fact. The Cruising on the Ridge is the only car cruise this year that will have one of our planes flying over it. Yeah. There's nobody else that's really requested us in Beaver County to fly over a cruise.
But what you're doing at the Air Heritage Museum, you're preserving history.
Exactly. You know, we get so many people coming in pretty much every day. We're open 7 days a week, Monday through Saturday, 10 to 5. And a lot of people say, well, why do you do this? You know, it's all unpaid volunteer. And we all do it because we believe strongly in preserving history. And that's what we do. We have planes there that are under restoration from the 30s. We have a couple fighter jets, an F-4 and F-15. more modern jets and stuff, and it's all about preserving history. To us, that's very, very important.
And how do you get access to these things? Are they donated by the military? I had a caller the other day saying about some of the military weaponry that we leave behind in different war zones. I said, they've done that forever, and I'm sure in Vietnam the fields are filled with planes, tanks, and other things. So how do you get them? Does the government call and say, hey, we've got this, do you have any interest in it?
So typically, a group called the GSA, the General Services Administration, there's a federal and a state level to that. And they are one of the main places where nonprofits can get aircraft. And we get them from them, and we have to display them for 5 years and maintain them and stuff, and then they're turned over to us. I'll give you an example. Our Thunder Pig was actually taken out to I knew I was going to say this wrong, the Mothin Air Force Base out in Arizona.
Okay.
It's an airplane junkyard kind of. There are thousands of airplanes out there, and they're all stored out there. Some of them are scrapped, but our folks back in the early 90s found out that this C-123 was out there, so they actually would fly out there, make repairs, come back home, fly out, make repairs, come back home until it was flight ready. And so that's where we get almost all of the airplanes. We've had a couple of the smaller airplanes donated to us, but like our F-4 and F-15, the more modern fighter jets, when you get them, you're not allowed to get them with an engine because our government really doesn't want Mike Romai flying over Beaver County in an F-15, so that's why they're static.
Our government knows exactly who Mike Romai is.
I think they know who all of us are, yeah.
So it's like the Cadillac Ranch for airplanes.
That's
and
exactly
fighter
right.
jets.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Tom Gargaro is our guest, Beaver County Air Heritage Museum, saving a part of history and doesn't get paid a dime. Can you imagine? He's talking about all these hours flying here, flying there. All these people are volunteers keeping history alive in Beaver County. We'll continue on the Best of Beaver County.
Oh my goodness, Amy, it's so good to see you.
Jennifer, how are you?
I'm fine. How are you? Is your mom doing any better?
Thank you for asking. I don't know if I can answer without being emotional. I'm sorry. I'm just tired and worried. I can't always be there for her, and it's so stressful.
I really understand. That's how I was with my dad. I'd recommend calling St. Barnabas. We did. We started with just having them come in for home care. He was so excited to see them show up. And when he needed more, we were able to move him in at Beaver Meadows, where he still has his own home-like space and excellent care.
Thanks for telling me that. I don't even know how to start, but I have to do something.
Oh, you can just give St. Barnabas a call. They have directors that can explain how it all works. Trust me, you'll feel so much better, and so will your mom.
I'm so glad I ran into you.
Visit stbarnabashealthsystem.com or call 724-443-0700 for care apart from the ordinary.
It's the Best of Beaver County on the St. Barnabas Radio Network. Our guest is Tom Gargaro. He is with the Air Heritage Aviation Museum here in Beaver County. And both names go together because they represent what you're preserving and that it is an aviation museum. Now, you don't have any Howard Hughes planes out there, right?
No, we really don't. It's not an easy process to get airplanes. We're one of the few museums, really, a small local museum that has two warbirds that fly, and I love the fact that this show is called The Best of Beaver County because Beaver County at the Air Heritage Aviation Museum has the best in the world, which is our C-123, the only one that flies in the world. So it's pretty unique to Beaver County.
So when you say that you're open 7 days a week, does that mean that people can show up and get a tour and see what you have out there, bring their families out?
Absolutely. Again, we're open 6 days a week.
6 days a week,
Monday
okay.
through Saturday, 10 to 5. People can show up. A lot of times if a big group's coming, we get Vietnam veterans groups, retiree groups, even car club groups that say, hey, we're going to bring 20, 30 people out. Yeah, they come in. They can either do their own tour or we'll walk along with them. They can ask us any questions. It's always free and whatever they want to donate.
And you have special guests coming in from all over the world.
Yeah, actually, I appreciate you bringing that up, Mike. This weekend, we have 4 of our members, two from Switzerland and 2 from Germany, who have been trying for a long time to get in to ride on our C-123. They all work for the airlines over there. I think 3 are pilots and 1 is a cabin chief. And so they've actually made arrangements to come in. They're all flying in on Friday to Greater Pitt, And then Saturday morning, we're doing a flyover in Lewisburg, PA, weather permitting, Saturday morning. And we've got them on the plane. They all tell me via emails that it's their lifetime goal to fly on a C-123. Okay. So, and again, they are members. You know, members are what really sustain us. Our membership is $30 a year, pretty reasonable and stuff. That's the only way you can fly on our planes, is if you're a member. So yeah, those 4 coming in, I'm not sure their schedule, but if they're going to be around, they'd love to be on the plane Saturday evening for Beaver County Boom too, which should occur really around 7:45 Saturday evening. I think the Beaver County Boom has some skydivers around 7 o'clock.
Okay.
The first plane you'll see come over Saturday night is called an L-21. It's a Piper Super Cub. It was actually lent during the Lend-Lease days many years ago to Italy. So when we got that plane, we restored it to look with the Italy type of colors. It's a small 2-seater plane. It'll fly over for a little bit, do a couple of loops around the confluence of the Beaver and the Mon and all those river towns. And then directly after that will be our C-123. And you mentioned before about how low they're flying. Yeah. When there's what the FAA calls a dense population, which is that people. Area, the lowest you're allowed to fly is 1,000 feet because it is a dense. Like if you're flying out in the middle of the country or in the woods, you can actually come down to 500 feet. But and the L-21 is a small plane. You'll be able to see it, but be pretty hard to see the markings on it. When the C-123 comes over, you'll not only see it, you'll hear it coming, and you'll hear it while it's going to do multiple loops around the confluence.
So treetop flyers is basically what you're saying, when they can get down that low over the rural areas where they're more wooded, forest and things like that, they can come down a little lower.
Absolutely.
And people from Chippewa, because you're taking off from Chippewa all the way up the river, not just in Bridgewater where the boom is taking place, they're going to be able to see this.
Absolutely, and we have very dedicated followers in the Chippewa area who actually see the plane and its plane path when it's taken off for landing. They continually ask us to let them know exactly what time we're leaving. That's always tough to nail down an exact time unless we have an air show we're going to, because the weather, we have to wait for the ceiling to be a certain height visibility, and then even then you have to spend 15 minutes or so doing a run-up, running the engines fully up and down. Before you fly any plane, you make sure that everything's working. So, and I did want to just add, this C-123, this was made for short landings and takeoffs. It could land on a grass strip. Believe it or not, and it's a big plane. If you see that plane in person, you look at it and think, I'm not even sure how it gets in the air. Yeah. But it was made for short landings, for takeoff and landing and stuff like that. Delivered a lot of soldiers. That's why so many Vietnam vets say, oh man, I remember that plane. So.
It made me feel safe and secure, right? Wrapped up in all that. Yeah. You know so much about this stuff, Tom. Were you always interested in planes as a kid?
I always was interested in airplanes. I wanted to be a pilot. Life took a fork in the road, and I ended up with the electric utility. But my dad was a meteorologist. My dad's name was Vince. Oh, okay. He worked at the National Weather Service at the old Pittsburgh Airport. On the third floor the only thing on the third floor was the weather. The main floor was all those stores. The second floor was some big restaurant, event place. Yeah. And so my dad, no computers back then, right? They worked around the clock, and when he was working 3 to 11, midnight or something in the summer, and we were off, he'd take us to work with him. Yeah. Security was not nearly as tight, sure. So we could sit and watch planes take off and land for hours at a time. Always been fascinated with airplanes.
Yeah, I used to do that, but from a grassy field right near the airport where we used to sit and watch planes take off.
We did that too, Mike. I know right what you're talking about, and I know what you're talking about.
But what else can people see, and how much more can they be involved? I know as volunteers, as members, but what do you have coming up at the Air Heritage Aviation Museum? Yeah,
so first of all, we have an inside museum part where we have a lot of very, very rare aviation-related memorabilia, a lot. And they're all in glass and close cases. They also we have a lot of projects going on. We have parts of planes there, famous planes. We did an event last year with the Beaver County Library System and Heinz History Center. It was a collaborative effort about Beaver County and World War II. And of course, the Curtiss Wright plant used to be down in Beaver, which turned into Westinghouse Beaver, which I'm not sure what it's called now, but
Eaton, I think.
Eaton, yeah. So we did a presentation last year. We had several hundred people there. We're going to put one together again this year, and I have a meeting next week to start putting it together, probably in September, on the B-25 that went down in the Mon in
I remember hearing about that.
56, 58. Never been found.
I thought it was a UFO.
Right. There's a gentleman named Bob Shima who has a river kind of rescue company for 30 years. They've been looking. They still believe it's down there, because there were hundreds of witnesses. It came down in the Mon, right past the Homestead high-level bridge.
Yeah.
Hundreds of witnesses, if not thousands, saw it go in, and nobody ever saw it come out.
No.
And there's still a mystery. So we're looking at putting on a presentation
That
about
would be
that probably
fascinating.
sometime in
Yeah,
September.
that would be fascinating, because I know they thought the Army came in with trucks and loaded stuff on the trucks and took it away and never told anybody anything about it.
There's a lot of theories, I'll say. There's a lot of people that believe the plane can't still be there. Where it went down in the Mon, it's only 25 or 30 feet deep.
Yeah.
This Bob Shima believes that it's buried now in silt. And then even if it floated down the river, just down by Neville Island, there's a dam that certainly it could have never gone over. But it remains a mystery to this day. We actually have a really big picture. It's not the real plane, it's a mock of it, but what that plane looked like. There were actually 6 people on board. I think 2 or 4 of them survived, but there's never really been an answer. So we like doing presentations about history and about aviation history.
You have any shows or demonstrations going on at the museum this year, this summer? Used to do air shows. Nobody does air shows anymore. Do you ever have car shows out there or anything like that where people can come out?
Yeah, we didn't this year due to schedules and logistics, but the last 2 years we had an event called the Wings and Wheels. Really a big event. The first year, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, I guess, had over 600 custom cars there, maybe 14 different airplanes, and a lot of vendors, a lot of food trucks and vendors. Last year, it kind of got rained out, and you know how the car community is.
Yeah.
It rained all day, but we still had a very, very successful. We get flooded with people out there when we have an event. We have a very, very close tie with the Community College of Beaver County. They have, one of the preeminent flight schools and probably the preeminent tower school in the country.
Air traffic controllers.
Air traffic controllers. So they'll do like recruiting events and stuff like that, and we'll do something special at the museum the same day to try to draw people in.
Wasn't there a grant or something that was just awarded out there to expand the runway or do something on the ground? Maybe they're building new buildings or something like that out there.
Yeah,
educational facilities.
To my knowledge, Community College of Beaver County, along with the Beaver County Airport Authority Board, they got these certain grants, and there's, I think, starting this fall, the shovel should go in the ground. I believe the tentative plans are for a brand new terminal building, a 2-story terminal building. Half of that will be for the airport, half for CCBC. Right now, they're in a building off to the right of our hangar, and they're also going to build a brand new tower. It's really something that Beaver County has, that airport out there, and it has CCBC. They're the ones who keep that area going, and it looks like it's going to get bigger and better.
Definitely a gem of Beaver County.
Absolutely.
And people sitting around today thinking, what are we going to do this afternoon? The weather's supposed to be nice. You can go out to the Air Heritage Aviation Museum.
Please stop on out. You can come for 5 minutes. You can come for 2 hours. We always ask that people consider becoming a member. Again, the membership is what sustains us. But they can come anytime. And here, I'll tell you this, Mike. Every child that comes out there, little boy, little girl, they love airplanes.
I'm sure.
They all love airplanes. And out there, you actually get to touch a plane. You can sit in a mock-up of a plane. So everybody loves it out there.
We took a flight just a couple of weeks back and got on a United Airlines plane, and the pilot gave my grandson a pair of wings to put on.
Really?
He was thrilled about that. So,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Tom Gargaro, thank you, and Judith, for all you do in preserving history in Beaver County with not only the Air Heritage Aviation Museum, but everything that you're involved with. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Mike, really on behalf of Air Heritage Aviation Museum. We really believe we're part of the best of Beaver County. Beaver County has so much to offer. Really thank you to St. Barnabas and Beaver County Radio for having us here today. Thank you
so much. It's the best of Beaver County. We're here every Thursday on Beaver County Radio on the St. Barnabas Radio Network.
Thank you for listening to the Best of Beaver County. St. Barnabas is pleased to